Okay, I would like to share my screen. Can you all read my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. At first, I would like to thank you, the organizer, to make such a conference possible. And I'm happy to have such an opportunity to speak on the title, The Violence of Acceleration as a Catalyst of Crisis in Late Modernity. So in regards to the previous presentation, to make such a wonderful distinction between the objective and subjective crisis. So my subject is more like to be focusing on the subjective crisis, but also in relations with how the objective crisis really caused the subjective crisis, but in a more ideal way. So I'm not, from my elaboration, maybe it's not such clearly to show that, but actually it's a hidden relations behind it. I think my presentation is able to show it. So company with other contemporary thinker, Hartmut Husserl, a German sociologist who contributes to the critique of the crisis of modernity in his book Social Accelerations in 2013 and Alienations and Acceleration in 2010. According to Husserl, the objective of social accelerations calls up the host in the analysis of modernity that thereby arose with the help of an outline of a systematic theory of social acceleration. This theory of social acceleration is in fact a theory of a modernity to affirm modernity as a process of acceleration. And later, accelerations become the characteristic of late modern society that pervades all spheres. For the purpose of a systematic study of social acceleration, Husserl distinguished three dimensions of social accelerations that are analytically distinct but interconnected, logically irreducible to each other, and empirically related in complex and partly paradoxical way. So the three dimensions of social accelerations mentioned by Husserl is first, technical acceleration. Second, accelerations of social change. Third, accelerations of the pace of life. I will explain them in detail in the following. So for the first one, the technical accelerations refers to the intentional accelerations of goal-directed process. For example, the accelerations of the process of transportation, of information transmission, and of productions of goods and services. Husserl traced the history of technical acceleration from pre-modern and pre-industrial society to the present. On the aspect of the accelerations of the process of transportation, from travel on foot, horse racing, and the steamship to the railway, to automobile, and finally to airplane and to spaceship. On the aspect of the accelerations of information transmissions, from marathon runner through horse racing messages, smoke signal, and mail pigeon, to telegraph and telephone, and finally to the spaceless internet. On the aspect of the accelerations of the productions of goods and services, from the steam engine to the utilizations of hydraulic power and the combustion engine, on down to electricity and the technology of industrial mass productions, and finally arrive at the micro-technological of computer age. Husserl agreed with Paul Vervillago's interpretations of the industrial revolutions as a dramaturgical revolution and conclude that the industrial revolutions is in the first instinct also a revolution of production speeds, one that continue in the digital revolutions during the transitions to the 21st century. The technical accelerations has great impact on social reality. Precisely, they have completely transformed the spatial temporal regime of the society, which is our perceptions and organizations of space and time in the social life had completely changed. there is a shrinkage or compressions of space, or what David Harvey called the annihilations of space by time, because the experience of space is to a great extent a function of the length of time it takes to traverse it. As a result, space loses its importance for orientations in the world of late modernity. Now I move to the second dimensions of social accelerations. The accelerations of social change is an increasing of the rate of decades of actions orienting experience and expectations, and a contractions of the time period that determine the presence of receptive functions, value, and action spheres, which means attitude, value, mode, and style of living, social relations and obligations, group classes, social language, form of practice, and habits in the society are constantly changing at a rapid rate. According to Husserl, there is no consensus in sociology on the relevant indicator to define social change, nor on which and when verifications should be considered as fundamentally or essential. Accordingly, he proposed the use of the concept of compressions of present as a benchmark for empirically measure the speed of social change. Accelerations of social change means that in different areas of society, the past and the future must be circumscribed within even shortened interval. The third one, accelerations of pace of life, which is a result of the scarcity of time resources. According to Husserl, accelerations of the pace of time objectively is compressions of the actions and experience carried out. For example, the reductions of durations default the mute or the amount of sleeping or the advantage communication time between family members have been reduced, but also try to reduce the total durations of time that we use in this area. While subjectively, it is expressed in the growing sense that one lack of time, or one is pressed for time and in a stressful conclusions to accelerate, as well as in anxiety about not keeping up. In other words, the accelerations of the pace of life affect individuals' perceptions of time, which will cause us to regard time as a real commodity, to feel rushed and also subject to time pressure and stress. As a result, we desire to do more things in less time and to perform several tasks simultaneously, which is we commonly called multitasking. Husserl specified several times that these three forms of social acceleration must be logically and analytically distinct from each other, not only because they are irreducible to each other, but they maintain interconnected relations between them. By definitions, technical accelerations generate free time resources and therefore works against the scarcity of these resources and hence also the accelerations of the tempo of time. Husserl even argued that in the modern world, social accelerations has become a self-propelling process that places the free ramp of acceleration into reciprocal relations of mutual escalations. In other words, these three forms of social accelerations form a circular system that always and inevitably reinforce itself to generate more accelerations. However, Husserl clarifies that it is only in late modernity that social accelerations has evolved into a self-propelling system that does not even need the sinus extra driving force, which means that in the early time of modernity, there are such an external driving force exists, and such a self-propelling system is a consequence of this other external drive. Husserl argued that the essential principles and law of profits inherent in capitalist economy play a major role in the process of accelerations and growth in modern society. The rarefied capitalist production process commodified time, which transformed time into a rare good to be better managed according to the criteria of efficiency. Time is money become the modern conceptions of time. Working time become an essential factor in productions. Thus, saving time could reduce costs and gains a competitive advantage. These modern conceptions of time also accelerate the circulations of capital and consumptions, which are essentials to maintain the competitiveness of a company. Competitions is one of the drive of social accelerations, technical accelerations in particular, which he called the economic drive or the social drive. Moreover, apart from this economic or social drive, the accelerations of all other social spheres follow the capitalist prism more or less necessarily as is epiphenomenon, including the productions of the corresponding cultural superstructure phenomena, the ideology of tempo, and the modern yelling for accelerations. According to Christoph Deutschmann, in a secularized capital society, money as coagulates time functionally replace God in religion, become the master of contingency, having as such as money possible, and therefore options would make it possible to react appropriate to the future contingency, which means that money can make us feel more safe in such a future full of unknown and uncertainty. Due to time being equivalent to money in capitalist society, that is, time is money, and the increasing contingency of life in late modernity, there is a thirst for acceleration specific to modern culture, which it is destined to remain insatiate. This is what Husserl called the cultural drive. This is the reason of the appearance of fast culture in modern world, like fast fashion, fast food culture, etc. To conclude, Husserl argued that these two external drives motivate social accelerations in early modernity, whereas in late modernity, social accelerations has turned into a self-propelling system that no longer needs even the sinus external drive force, and it has become a coasted and self-propelling system. Although Husserl is not the first one to criticize modernity as an accelerating process, for example, Peter Corrett and David Harvey, while Husserl's underlying questions and concern is somehow very different from them. Husserl is interested in the questions of the good life, precisely of the weight out of alienations. In the introductions to Alienations and Accelerations, the book of Husserl in 2010, Husserl stated that this book attempts to return to perhaps the most important questions for us human beings. What is a good life, and why do we lack of it? In other words, Husserl will introduce these questions in today's context. That is, what is a good life in late modern society, and why do we lack of it? However, in the interview with Phi Laster and Robert Selakate, Husserl clarified that what he means by good life is not one live according to one principle, but rather one feels the least alienated when one is overwhelmed by something. Therefore, when Husserl asks what the good life is, he is asking what the least alienated life is. In this sense, Husserl admits that there is always alienations in late modern society. To ask what a good life in late modern society is and why do we lack of it, we must first try to understand what the late modern society is. Therefore, Husserl begins the book Alienation and Accelerations by asking what characterizes modernity. We also need to review the relations between aliens and the late modern society, precisely between alienation and acceleration, which is already suggested by the title of his book. As I have already mentioned above, in social acceleration, Husserl attempts to develop a theory of social accelerations to affirm modernity as a process of acceleration, and later accelerations become the characteristic of late modern society. The modern society becomes a society of accelerations. According to Husserl, the social acceleration transforms our being in the world, which is our relations to the world as such, precisely our relations to the social world, to the objective world, and to the subjective world. And it produced the new perceptions of time and space, of new model of social interactions, and of new model of human subjectivity. Husserl argued that these transformations has become problematic because they potentially create social pathology or thereby cause human suffering or unhappiness. In this sense, the social pathology are the consequence of social accelerations. However, simultaneously, Husserl argued that acceleration in itself neither good nor bad. These two affirmations seem to be contradicted, but in fact they didn't. What Husserl means is that accelerations like technology itself is neutral, whereas it is bad when it produces social pathology. Therefore, for Husserl, what is problematic is not the acceleration itself. Nevertheless, the social accelerations lead to social pathology or even alienations. So what Husserl means, what is problematic is our desire to accelerate our life and our style and the three dimensions of accelerations. For Husserl, alienations indicate a deep and structural distortions of the relationship between the self and the world. In some sense, accelerations necessarily lead to alienations, as acceleration transforms our world, our being in the world problematically. This is what I call the violence of accelerations. And as accelerations become the characteristic of late modern society, then alienation is present everywhere in late modern society. Alienations is always there and inevitable. There is no way out from alienations, as there is no way out from acceleration as well as modernizations. In late modernity, we can no longer seek a non-alienated life, a life without a deep and structural distortions of relations between the self and the world, as social accelerations cause such distortion already. This is why Husserl suggests that asking what the good life is in today's context is in fact asking what the least alienated life is. From here, we can see accelerations as a catalyst of alienations, and thus the violence of accelerations as a catalyst of alienations crisis in late modernity. Okay, this is the end of my presentations. Thank you.